The True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. It is July 6th right now. If you don't want to hear us chat for like 10 minutes, just remember there's a timestamp in the episode description. You can fast forward if you just want to hear the updates we're going to talk about today. I am recording still. I mentioned the last episode on my super old computer, and I don't know if I talked about this. I broke my new microphone, which I got within like the last year. I snapped something in the micro USB, so I'm also using my old microphone now, which luckily is also a pretty good microphone. So if anything sounds different, I'm sorry that my life is in shambles.
Maybe you can try for a warranty claim.
I was going to look. I think it's partially my fault too, though. I feel like they'll argue that's my fault because I didn't realize how fragile micro USBs are, apparently. And I definitely could have been gentler with it because like I leave the cord plugged into it and then I'll just kind of take it and like put it. Yeah. So I think it kind of just wiggled around too much. But lesson learned, so that's annoying.
At least you've got a proper setup today. You've got it working as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm not on my phone like last time. But I don't know. If anything sounds weird, that's why. Also, well, I'll be able to edit this one on my on my MacBook, so that should all be fine at least. Because even on the last one, I was like, oh shit, I don't have the music. I don't have any of the stuff. But luckily it was on my iCloud or what the fuck ever. I don't really use Apple usually, except I have a MacBook. I do not have an iPhone.
It all came together.
Yeah, for the most part. No one's like really bitched about it yet. So
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the comments. So.
No.
It's super hot. I have to turn off my air conditioner to record. There's like a heat advisory and another air quality advisory and all that. So honestly, everything's just in shambles.
I know. Here, like we're in the winter trenches. Like, sorry if I sound sick because I am. I was trying to think of a not disgusting word, but yeah, all congested. We're kind of in the trenches of winter. I remember this time last year, I think I was in like Palm Springs or somewhere where it was amazingly hot. Now we're in the freezing cold. It's sunny at least, that's one thing, but yeah, cold, everyone's sick. My friend's little boy's been in hospital with RSV.
Oh no.
It's all happening. So anyway, hopefully we're about halfway through Nelly winter. I'm just getting ahead of myself. Nelly halfway through. So Nelly there. I keep telling myself anyway.
At least you have Taylor Swift to look forward to.
Only 7 months or something to go.
She still hasn't read your Instagram message?
Sorry, no, my daughter asked me every day, and then there was an article that came out the other day about how she actually did reply to someone, so I've probably given her some false hope.
Just tell her that it was probably someone from her team.
Yeah, I know, because she's like, it was about the person whinging how they didn't get tickets, and she's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear this. I'll have my team look into it. So I think 100% was not her, but...
What a random like message to respond to.
I know, like out of all, like I imagine how many messages like that she gets. They've probably just got copy paste.
I think about how many. First of all, who's messaging celebrities? Like for real, like they shouldn't even have inboxes because it's so dumb. But just like imagine the black hole of Taylor Swift's DMs.
Imagine how many. Like even when I sometimes find ones that are years old or months old in ours, I'm like, wow, imagine them.
Yeah, crazy. We made a Threads account.
I feel like what's the terminology? I feel like such a old person. Like, we made a thread?
That's what I was saying yesterday. The equivalent of being like, oh, they tweeted. Like, what? Oh, they threaded? Or do you just say they posted on Threads?
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyways, for those who don't know, by the time this comes out, I feel like everyone will know. But I've been getting a lot of messages being like, wait, what is this? Instagram made like a Twitter competitor. So it kind of just links to your Instagram account, even though it's a separate app. But it's basically the same as Twitter.
I wish it was all in one. That would be so much easier.
Yeah, like you could just switch.
Yeah.
That'd be easier. And it's annoying because I can't be on Instagram. If you have multiple accounts, you can just stay logged in and switch between them. There's like a drop down. But Threads, you have to literally log in and log out to if I want to be on mine or if I want to be on True Crime Society, which is annoying. So hopefully they update that soon. But yeah, we'd like to try to use it. I don't know how dedicated we'll be, but we'll give it a go.
I'm still a bit confused because I feel like it is a cross between posts and stories. So basically it's like you can make a thread like where you write something and everyone can comment and you have a conversation, which I feel like you can essentially really do that on Instagram posts. But I guess this way you don't need the image. It's a little bit quicker.
I think it's easier to read on Threads for some reason.
Absolutely. And easier to kind of comment back and forth to people as well. And I do get it's actually a smart move, I think, because Twitter is going down, it seems.
Yeah, and so they saw the opportunity to profit, but
yeah. So it's interesting. I think it could be useful for us. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, Meta has really monopolized the social media world.
I do feel like Threads, though, is a bit clunky at the moment. Like, it hasn't got a lot of features that Instagram has. Like, you can't switch between, for example, like your personal and the true crime account. You have to log out and log back in. And even things like it'll say you've got 10 replies to your thread. And then when you go on, you can read 6 and it says some replies cannot be shown. When you click on it, it takes you to like an error page. So I feel like it's very much very early days.
Yeah, but also a lot of people join. So it could be like,
overloaded.
Shitting out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll try to do that. Follow us in there. You made one too. We both made them. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into using it, but Twitter growing up gave me a lot of trauma, so I get so scared. I was like bullied relentlessly by some mean girls on Twitter for like a whole fucking year of my life. I wasn't even a kid. I was like probably 18, 19, but it was so bad that I get so nervous. I'm just going to post something and I'm going to be like relentlessly ridiculed and harassed. So I'm getting over it.
I've never been big on Twitter. Like, I've had a Twitter account forever and I go on there sometimes if there's like breaking news and see what's happening. But yeah, I don't really ever use it much aside from that.
When Twitter was new, I was on it all the time. I was tweeting all the time. It was so embarrassing to look back on. But everyone was at the time, which makes it like a little less painful to think about. But yeah, I used to use it a lot. I don't know. I still have PTSD, so we'll see. I posted a crying cat, which is how I feel.
It's like I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but it's kind of interesting that they've relaunched something that already exists. Like, I get now there's probably a bit more of a gap in the market, but I wonder if there's ever going to be anything really new in social media. Like, maybe have we reached the limit? I guess.
Yeah,
what else can you do?
I mean, there's been so many things also that like don't really catch on. Like
yeah,
Clubhouse and even Be Real. I know it kind of caught on, but are people still using Be Real? I never used it.
Telegram, Vine. Remember all those? I think Telegram's still
Vine,
going, but
just
Vine.
got rid of.
Yeah,
Vine's basically just like now it's TikTok, I guess.
Was there like Periscope? Is that another one or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember what that was though.
Neither
There's also apparently Blue Sky, which is like another Twitter alternate. I don't know what that is. And there's the one Donald Trump made, like Truth or something. And we're also gonna start. I'm like reluctant to say it because we have to commit, but we've been talking about it for a bit, especially with the drama of my job and like basically not having a reliable income, which is still tumultuous. We're talking about doing a Patreon. Like, a lot of people have messaged us saying that they would love for us to have one and they'd love to like support us directly. And I'm not just like saying that so people are like, oh, okay, people really have messaged us.
It's
So
like when an influencer says, I've had so many messages asking, where I got this dress, when they've probably had none.
Like 2 messages. No, people really have messaged us. And so we're thinking of starting by just doing ad-free episodes for a low price monthly. We haven't figured out exactly. So we're going to do that and then hopefully eventually expand and maybe do some other tiers, maybe do some bonus episodes. Like, a lot of people like the wedding episode we did. We could do other things like that, or we could do we want to do more casual chat crime episodes, kind of about recent cases. Like we were saying, doing like a quick one about Rudy Farias would have been a good one. Since it's such a whirlwind, it would have been a good one to do like a quick chat about. We are going to do a real episode on it, but it'd be nice to be able to just kind of pop on something and chat about what's going on casually in a less produced kind of way.
Yeah, because this podcast takes a lot of research, a lot of production. So, like, nothing will change with this podcast. If you're like, you don't get angry, it's all going to be the same. If you listen once a week, you can still listen for free. Nothing's going to change. But it's just for anyone who would like anything additional that's not in the same format as this podcast, essentially.
It's for the people who don't fast forward the chat that really like us.
And we did have after that episode, we had so many nice messages, and like even another one today where they're like, I just can't wait for release day and things like that. So it might not be for you, and that's fine. Just stick with this. But if you are looking for something a little bit different, a little bit maybe a bit more conversational, casual, that's something that we're looking into.
Yeah, and plus, if you're someone who just likes the regular episodes, if I can do Patreon and we can make enough money to quit our jobs, we could put out even more just regular episodes.
Aim high.
Yeah. I was just saying, I'd love to put out more episodes, but like I physically, mentally am at my limit sometimes.
Like we both have jobs, we both have like other jobs. I mean, besides this is also almost a full-time job. But we also, like, I was on Patreon having just a look around the other day, and basically every other single podcast pretty much has a Patreon. One podcast I actually listened to went Patreon only, which we will not do, so don't worry about that. But I feel like we're late to jump on the bandwagon. It's just something that might help us a little bit more to be able to create more content, hopefully.
Yeah, it's scary, but we need to just rip the Band-Aid off and do it as if it's like torture.
I know,
just
like,
scary though.
I feel like it's important. Like everyone or a lot of people are having a very hard time at the moment, money-wise. Like there's a lot going on. People are losing their jobs. Companies going broke. We know there's a lot going on. So it won't cost a lot of money. Absolutely not. It'll be a very small amount per month if you would like to do it. If not, just stick with this.
Yeah. So please don't be mean to us about it. We're already nervous, little beans.
We're still providing the exact same service. This is just an extra one if you would wish to participate.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. We'll put out more info once we get it sorted. But yeah, so I guess that's all we really have to say for now. We're going to get into some updates today. We're going to talk about the Delphi stuff that came out. There was more information out about Harmony Montgomery, which we also did a podcast on. We'll give like a little recap when we get there. And the latest Moscow stuff with Bryan Kohberger and the house being torn down and the death penalty and all that. So it's kind of just like a little potpourri of an update episode.
They're kind of big updates, but not big enough to speak about for an hour each. I feel like they're very important, each of them, for their cases. But so that's why we've put them together. Even though there's not really many similarities between the three, it's important to kind of chat about the updates, we think.
They're all pretty big cases. Maybe Harmony is not as big as like Delphi and Moscow, but I think it's still one a lot of people followed. And also the update's just like sickening, honestly. So trigger warning, all these cases are about the murders of young people, young adults, and children. So trigger warning, especially for Harmonies.
Especially horrific. It's got a lot of details which are very, very sad.
Yeah, it's awful. So just keep that in mind. But we're going to start with Delphi. So at the end of June 2023, they released 118 documents related to the case. Delphi is kind of notorious for everything was very tight-lipped forever. Everything's sealed. Really, there's not that much information known about the actual crime or anything like that. So we're just starting to find out still very, very few things. I think everyone knows this case, really, but just as a refresher, February 2017, Abigail Williams and Liberty German were murdered in Delphi, Indiana. They had a sleepover. They went out and they were walking on the Monon High Bridge, and a strange man approached them and led them down the hill. Libby was able to get the recording of the man approaching them and his voice on there. So that was out there. There were sketches, and it's really was pretty much unresolved until very recently, over the last year. Things have been starting to go on. So we did an episode on it. If you want to listen to the whole thing, if you're not familiar with it, but I think most people are at this point. So we'll just go from there. Richard Allen was arrested. He is a man who lived in Indiana, worked at the local CVS, interacted with the families, and the reason they even came across him in the first place was because they were re-going over the case and basically kind of found a missed follow-up where they spoke to him, and he admitted to being on the bridge that day and to literally wearing the outfit that the guy in the photos and videos was wearing. And the officer wrote potential follow-up, but no one ever followed up. So they re-followed up with him and started talking to him, and that's kind of how they latched back onto him. They took some of his guns, A bullet was found at the scene by the girls' bodies. They ran another bullet through his guns, and the striations on the bullet matched his gun. So it's kind of like a fingerprint for bullets. It's pretty spot on. Like you do, it's like microscopic because some people are like, is that really all they have? But you know what? It led them, kind of confirmed it was him or someone at least who had his gun. But anyway, so these documents came out. They're very highly anticipated, but I really don't think they gave much information, being 118 pages. I went through all of them. The bulk of them is honestly about him complaining that he was being mistreated in prison or jail or wherever the fuck he is. And a lot of it's back and forth about that, honestly.
I was hoping there would be more actual factual evidence in the documents, like,
Yeah,
we know
not
that
really.
this and this and this, where it's not. A lot of it is just kind of about things he's said
Yeah.
since
There's a
the
few little
arrest.
tidbits, but
Yeah.
most of it was, not that it wasn't interesting, but not what most people were kind of looking for. It did confirm for the first time that the girls were killed with a sharp object, which we kind of already knew. One, because it was always a rumor, like a pretty prominent rumor, but also their death certificates were kind of released, which had said that on the death certificates, but it was never officially publicly stated anywhere. So in one of the documents, it says autopsies of the girls ruled their deaths as homicides and their wounds were caused by a sharp object. It also said, which was new information, I'm pretty sure, not that it's especially groundbreaking, that investigators located Libby's iPhone 6 under her body at the scene and they were able to recover a video, which we know the video. But I remember they were saying, I think it must have been when they were missing, because they were like, they got into the cloud on their phones. But we never really knew if they had the phones, I don't think, or if the phones were potentially destroyed. I mean, I guess it could have been, but it was there at the scene with her.
So sloppy. Like, it would have taken him a second to grab the phone. He clearly, I guess, I understand he was probably panicked and wanted to get out of there, but that would have been a big thing to have taken with him.
With how sloppy it really was, like him being on video, his voice, all of that, he got away with it for a long time.
Yeah, he did.
It also said in there is a version of the affidavit, which was already released, but it's totally unredacted. So if you read the original redacted affidavit and found it kind of confusing to follow because so much was blocked out, like mostly names and stuff, this one does make it a little easier to follow. They did say also in here that they determined that articles of clothing from the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and a sock. We always heard kind of things that some of the girls' belongings were in the creek. I think on some of the scanner during that time that people were listening to, they said they found a pair of underwear and stuff in the creek that they bagged for evidence. I don't know if it was technically theirs or if it was just unrelated, but there's always rumors about stuff like that as well. It also says somewhere, I couldn't find it when I tried to go back, but investigators also said they believe in the audio of the video that Libby took that you can hear someone cycling like bullets through a gun because they kind of think that he used the gun to corral them to go where he wanted them to, because Abby also says in the video, like, gun, like that guy has a gun. So they think they heard him cycling the rounds or whatever through. One of the bigger things as well that came out with the documents was that Richard, once he was in jail, actually confessed multiple times to his wife and his mother that he did commit the crimes. It says the defendant has admitted that he committed the offenses, and he's charged with no less than 5 times while talking to his wife and mother on the public jail phones available at Indiana Department of Corrections. So then it says that his wife then abruptly ended the call. That's kind of what led into this panic by the defense, it seems like, because their immediate, as soon as that happened, the defense started saying that Richard was being treated worse than a prisoner of war and he was going through horrific conditions, his mental health. They had a picture of him all disheveled looking, and they're trying to say that his mental state is horrible. So basically the admissions of guilt can't really be counted because of his mental state.
Yeah, he's going crazy, so he's saying,
crazy things.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of the documents were about. In the documents, there's also a letter from another inmate there writing saying that Richard was being mistreated and that they're calling him a kid killer and all this stuff. But if you look that guy up, he is also in prison for child sex abuse related crimes. So
found himself a friend.
Yeah.
So in terms of kind of what Richard has said versus what is apparently reality, I found a document online. I'll pop it on the blog. Basically, so the defense are claiming that he's been, quote, entombed in a cell as small as 6 foot in width by 10 foot in length, a space no larger than a dog kennel. The reality is apparently he's been in a 12 foot by 8.5 foot cell since the day he arrived in prison. Like, I'm pretty sure that's probably just a standard cell size. He's not being kept in anything smaller than a standard cell, it seems.
Even 6 foot by 10 foot, I'm like, that's like pretty big.
Yeah, like I don't know how big I expected a cell to be, but
Try living
probably
in a
about
New
that
York
big.
City apartment, my man.
Another one claim they said is he's sleeping on a pad on a concrete floor where he actually apparently has a mattress on a metal bed frame. Again, same standard.
But then they also said they had to take away his bed frame because he was on suicide watch or something. So, like, yes, but that was also just normal.
Yeah. They said he can only shower 1 to 2 times a week, where he's allowed 3 showers a week. Like that, that is a bit ridiculous. I guess, once a week would be, but anyway, whatever.
3 times a week, that's plenty.
It says he's required to wear the same clothes, including underwear, for days and days on end, all of which are soiled, stained, tattered, and torn. The reality is apparently he has 3 sets of clothing. He also has access to the commissary where he has bought clothing, shoes, and socks.
And with those, there was like whatever document I was from with the state or the prosecution's response. They were like, it's not our fault that he's choosing not to shower 3 times a week and is choosing not to change his clothes.
Yeah.
He has the access
option
to them. He's
and
just not doing it.
He doesn't have the option to live a free life and shower twice a day and wear 2 sets of clothes a day, but it seems like he has adequate, allowance to these things. And yeah, he's just not using them.
Yeah, because he's trying to feed into it as his defense now.
One other claim, it says, Mr. Allen has not been afforded any opportunity to visit his wife or other family members during the last 5 months, and he has been subjected to conditions akin to those of a prisoner of war. So they've said that he does have the option to one-on-one visits with his family if he requests it. However, he hasn't requested it. He saw his wife for the first time in May when his defense attorney brought her along.
Also, prisoners of war should be absolutely offended at that fucking statement.
Yeah, I know.
What an insane
Getting
thing to
3
say.
meals a day, I'm assuming, or meals a
also,
day.
He's a suspected child murderer.
Yeah. And then this last one, it says, Mr. Allen is afforded very little, if any, recreation time outside his cold concrete and metal quarters. And their rebuttal is he has a tablet which accesses music, movies, and phone calls, and he is afforded 1 hour of exercise and recreation time 5 times a week. So 5 days a week,
seems
he can
like
go
a
outside for an
luxury.
hour. I know, a nice
tablet
to watch some movies.
Well, and apparently they can text on it as well. And they said that he was making 2 phone calls a day from it and like texting from it. I'm sure it's probably just his family he's allowed to text or whatever. Yeah. It's probably through some app, I'd suspect. But ever since they had to be like his mental health, he stopped doing all that and broke the tablet.
There's a full document where they kind of rebut 15 things that they've said, and basically what he's getting is the same as every other inmate. So his recreation time is exactly the same. The clothes and shower time is exactly the same. The cell is a standard size. All inmates get that mattress. So there's absolutely nothing extra horrible about his treatment. It's just the standard treatment that you get in that jail.
Right. And they said somewhere that he was threatening suicide or making suicidal remarks. So sure, maybe things are a little stricter because he's on suicide watch or was at some point, but still that's all seems pretty standard.
Yeah.
It also said in the documents that they do believe that his voice is the one in the cell phone video saying down the hill to the girls, which, yeah, I would assume. And they also put up the search warrants and what they took from his house when they searched it. I don't think any of it is overly interesting.
One thing I did
guns.
See on there that was kind of interesting is the Carhartt coat, sealed paper bag containing 1 blue Carhartt coat, which I know it had always been like in the analysis of online detectives that maybe the coat was a Carhartt brand. That stood out to me. I don't know if it was the same coat, but it seems possible.
I wonder if it's literally the same coat. How insane would you have to be to keep that fucking coat?
Even things like sealed paper bag containing 1 pair of Timberland boots. I feel like, if I remember rightly, it looks like he was wearing
boots like that. Yeah.
There's other boots on there, like dirty Thorogood boots. So it could be, and another pair of dirty black boots. So it could be any of those. But
I remember they were like thick looking, rugged boots.
And it's interesting that they took like a whole bunch of pairs of jeans. Like I can see 4 here. 5 actually. So it looked like also he was wearing jeans. Like they seemed like they
Yeah.
were specific in the clothing they took. They didn't take all of his clothing, I assume. They just took some very specific
That might have been all his
pieces.
jeans. I've only got
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I know, I
5 or
agree.
6
But like
pairs
there's
of
not like
jeans.
I can't really see, for example, I don't know, I don't want to say it in case I'm wrong, but like t-shirts and things like that. There's a lot of sweatshirts,
Oh
jackets,
yeah.
hoodies, even things like skull caps they've put on their stocking caps. So it looked
Because
like
it looked
maybe
like he was
he,
wearing,
yeah,
I think one of the girls said it looked like he was wearing a hat and a hood or something.
yeah,
But lots of knives on here,
yeah. Lots of
lots of
phones,
guns, phones.
hard drives,
Uh,
cameras. Yeah, they just took a lot of, yeah, basically technology, anything that looked similar to what the person was wearing on the bridge.
yeah,
And
micro
they also took
USB headbands.
stuff from his car as well. They swabbed his driver's lap belt. So I guess, if there was any blood or any other DNA on it, that would have been interesting.
Why are there so many fucking phones?
No,
I mean, I guess
like,
that's kind of a red flag. Like, I have my old ones, but I don't have that many. I'm assuming if you wore any of those clothes during this, because there was a person who saw him walking along the side of the road that said that he was covered in mud and blood, the person. So if he kept any of those clothes, I feel like there would still be blood somewhere on them.
yeah, and I really do feel with him, sorry, it was like dumb luck that he wasn't found sooner. Like he was on their radar sooner. He just kind of slipped away in the chaos and the panic. So I'd feel like he wasn't especially clever about how he carried out this crime. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did hold on to some of the stuff.
Yeah. And I've said this before with cases. It's a perfect example of why sometimes the public hysteria can kind of hinder an investigation because
Mm-hmm.
maybe if there wasn't so many tips and so much chaos, maybe they wouldn't have this follow up wouldn't have slipped through the cracks, is what I always wonder. So his trial is scheduled for January 2024 right now. I'm sure there'll be more updates between then and now.
When I posted on Instagram earlier that we were doing updates on these 3 cases, and did anyone have any questions or comments? And someone wrote they would like to hear our thoughts on the photo released by the defense of Richard, and that it seems like it's very convenient timing. So I'll put the photo on the blog, and we've posted it on our Facebook too, but on our
The one of him
Instagram
looking
too.
disheveled?
Yeah, so he's kind of looking to, almost looks like he's drooling. He's got like drool on his prison outfit. He has lost a ton of weight. Like that's not in dispute. He looks horrible. Like when I saw it, I actually was like, wow, that is a big decline. Um, but I do agree. Like I'm not surprised he's losing weight. He's probably very stressed, very anxious. The food would be shit. Like there's
Yeah, you don't have
multiple
like free
reasons.
access to food. And he
Yeah,
was kind of
why?
chubby before.
I feel like he seemed like I'm generalizing, but there was photos of him before in a bar. Like he obviously can't drink now, which would
Mm-hmm.
maybe lead to some weight loss. I just feel like they picked the absolute worst photo they could of him, where he looked horrible, and released it to the public. I'm sure, like in other mugshots and stuff we've seen, he looks normal. He looks not like not like that.
The state even said that the photo was taken literally after he just came back from recreation hour or something, so he was a little sweaty and gross looking.
He was all
And
sweaty.
yeah, and also he clearly hadn't changed his clothes for days. And they said in the thing, they're like, nobody's making him wear dirty clothes or clothes that are soiled. He's just choosing to.
I do agree that the photo was released at very convenient timing. Kind of that was when they launched their whole he's been treated horribly.
And it was right after he
Yeah.
made the confessions, apparently.
The only other question, which I don't really know the answer to, I've spoken about it a bit in the past, is if there's any DNA in this case. I believe the police always kind of alluded to having DNA, but in all the documents that have come out, it's not in there, if I'm right.
They always said things like, well, yeah, there's lots of DNA at the crime scene, but we just have to figure out whose DNA is whose. We have to cancel out the family. We have to cancel out to try to get to the actual killer's DNA. They've never confirmed if they have the DNA of the killer. They've always been very ambiguous about it.
Yeah, be
Which I
very
feel like
cagey.
maybe now that they know that they have him, they might be able to find DNA that was at the crime scene. But people were walking all over that whole
Yeah.
area as well, looking for the girls early on.
And also, like, he's a local. He's probably been on that bridge before. So even if his DNA was there, like, it would be different
He
if it
could
was on the
easily be
girls'
like, yeah, I was there.
bodies, for example. Like, I know there was rumors of cigarettes being found at the scene and stuff. Maybe he was a smoker. I don't know. But unless the DNA was actually found on the girls, it would be hard to prove, or hard to use that in the case anyway.
Or the defense could try to give reasonable doubt of why it was there. But yeah, they've never confirmed or denied either way. All right, Harmony.
Okay, so a lot happened in June. All these 3 updates happened in June. We learned more about the tragic probable death of Harmony Montgomery. She was apparently murdered by the one person who was meant to love her the most, her father. We first did an episode for Harmony in January 2022. If you're not familiar with her case, she was last seen alive in 2019, but she wasn't reported missing until 2021. There seems to have been kind of a spate of cases like this. Like Oakley Carlson was another one who took a long time to get reported missing. There's sometimes these kids who just slip through the cracks, and it's honestly years before anyone realizes that they haven't been seen.
Mm-hmm.
So they just released the affidavit in this case. And as we mentioned earlier, the details are horrific. So just a trigger warning for this. So Adam allegedly beat Harmony to death in a fit of rage after she had a bathroom accident in the car that the family was living in. So I feel like that is just, even when they're living in a car, this family of, there was Adam and Kayla and Harmony and in the car, living in the car, that's just horrible enough anyway. But he beat her to death apparently after she had the accident in the car, and he kind of carried her body from the place to place that they lived next in an effort to conceal her remains. He repeatedly struck Harmony, who was 5 years old at the time, in the head after he was frustrated over the bathroom accident, and this was in December 2019. A lot of this information comes from Adam's estranged wife, Kayla Montgomery, and she told police all this information.
After a long time of lying, though.
Yeah.
So don't give her too much credit.
And she's also been arrested and charged, I feel like, with drug possession and drug-related issues. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot of drugs.
So this is direct from the affidavit. It says, Kayla described that Harmony was in the rear seat on the passenger side, and while Adam was driving, he turned his body and delivered sets of 3 to 4 blows with a closed fist to Harmony's face and head on 3 separate occasions over the course of a few minutes. Kayla stated that after the final blow, Adam said words to the effect of that he felt something or heard something when he hit Harmony, and he said, "I think I really hurt her this time. I think I did something." After that, Harmony began making a moaning noise, and the family went to Burger King, as you do, and she moaned for about 5 minutes and then stopped. In the affidavit, it says, at no time did anyone stop or get Harmony medical attention as the result of this assault. Kayla said this happened in the morning while the family was on their way to Burger King. Afterwards, the family returned to the parking lot of the Colonial Village apartments, and that is, I believe, where they had been living in their car in the parking lot of these apartments.
Yeah.
The family stayed at Colonial Village for approximately 20 minutes, during which time no one checked on Harmony. So Harmony did apparently die in that car a short time later. Adam and Kayla put her lifeless body into an Under Armour duffel bag before transferring her body into a red cooler with a white top. There's actually photos of the cooler and a lot of the evidence in the affidavit. So looks like a smallish cooler, one that you could carry with one arm. Essentially, they put her body in there.
Also, how fucking just white trash. You beat the shit out of your poor daughter living in your car because she's too scared to speak up to say she has to go to the bathroom, because I'm sure this isn't the first time you beat her up. On your way to Burger King, and still fucking go get Burger King while she's dying in the car. Horrible.
Yeah, it's just horrible. They go on to say, Kayla explained how Harmony's body was moved to various locations over the course of the next several months. She stated that after living in the Colonial Village parking lot, they moved in with her mother. When they arrived at that residence, Harmony's body, which was still in the duffel bag inside the cooler, was placed in the common hallway of the apartment building. She stated that the body was left there the whole time the family stayed there until the end of December 2019. So I'm assuming that's weeks. This body lay in the cooler in a hallway, and no one knew or did anything about it. They've also apparently placed Harmony's body inside garbage bags and a refrigerator after her death. In June 2022, Kayla alleged that Adam placed the duffel bag with Harmony's remains in a ceiling vent in a bedroom when they moved into a shelter. Kayla stated that during this time there was liquid coming from the bag containing Harmony's dead body and that there was an odor. She said that Adam placed a trash bag around the bag to keep it from leaking. So detectives later searched the ceiling vent and they took an area of the roof for DNA. There's a photo of it there. It's like an air conditioning ceiling vent type thing. They did get some DNA from that, and they said the DNA profile obtained from the sample is approximately 1.1 trillion times more probable if the sample originated from Harmony Montgomery and one unknown person than if it originated from 2 unknown persons. So in February 2020, the family moved to Union Street. Kayla has said that Harmony's remains were transferred into a fridge there. Adam then allegedly moved his daughter's remains into a Catholic Medical Center maternity bag after spending hours in the bathroom with the shower running. So, like, it goes on to talk about that he probably likely dismembered her at that point. I'm guessing at that point, decomposition would have set in a lot, and it would have been, like, I don't even want to get into details, but it would have been easier than dismembering a body that had just passed away.
Yeah.
The bag is tiny. Like, there's a photo of it. It's literally a tote bag that you would take to go buy bread and milk or something like that.
Like a canvas tote bag.
In the affidavit, it says this bag was much smaller than the Under Armour bag, and it would likely not fit Harmony's body unless it was dismembered or grossly distorted. Kayla described an odor coming from the bathroom and saw steam when Adam would open the door. She remembers the scent of cleaning supplies when Adam had finished up. So Adam later took that bag to his place of work, which was the Portland Pie Company. He stored Harmony's remains in a walk-in cooler for a week or so. So he's literally just carrying this body, putting it wherever he wants. I can't believe he got away with it for so long.
And like that no one noticed. I mean, I guess you see people carrying bags all the time and you don't think much of it, but it's also just like he left it for how long at his job? Like
a week or so. They did ask a worker about it, and the worker had said that he saw the bag on the floor, and he'd never asked Adam about it because he never knew he had children. Like, I guess you would never, ever, ever think, I don't know. I would probably also never look in it. I'd just think, oh, whatever. But so I guess being in that cooler, the remains froze. Adam eventually took the bag back to their apartment where he dumped the remains in the tub with a bag of lime so that it would help with the decomposition of her body. Kayla said Adam had a difficult time fitting Harmony's body back into the bag. Harmony's body was frozen. She admitted to helping Adam cut Harmony's clothes off her body to make her fit into the bag. So she died in December 2019. In either March or May of 2020, Adam rented a U-Haul and drove to an unknown destination to dispose of Harmony's dead body in the middle of the night, according to Kayla. Kayla said that she saw that basically they were standing in a Conno Lodge or a Comfort Inn, and that she saw a U-Haul from the hotel window, and that basically when he got back, he was very tired, and he said words to the effect of, "It's done." So Adam is facing charges of second-degree murder, tampering with witnesses and informants, falsifying physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse in his daughter's death. The murder trial is due to begin in November this year, I believe. So,
and they've never found her remains.
No, she's still missing. I knew it was going to be horrendous. I maybe didn't think it was going to be that horrendous. I thought maybe she...
Just the lengths that he went through and carried this body around for so long. He's absolutely deranged, should be in prison for the rest. Anyone who could do that for that long is a fucking sick person.
Yeah. And I also don't know why Kayla isn't being punished more. Like, I'm assuming there was a plea deal and she gave them information.
Because without this, they'd probably have nothing, basically.
And I still can't believe also another case, dumb luck. Like, he just got lucky that no one looked in the bag, no one looked in the cooler, and he somehow managed to carry his daughter's remains around for either 4 or 6 months before disposing of them. There's not really any questions about Harmony. There's a lot of comments. Someone said, "I'm still heartbroken about Harmony and angry at the judge who took her out of a loving foster home and placed her with her father, who was clearly a violent criminal."
Oh, yes.
Because she had that lovely seemingly lovely, I'm assuming lovely, foster mother.
Oh, yeah, her foster mom was really nice, it seemed. I mean, I don't know her, but she made a lot of very nice posts, like, kind of advocating to search for her.
It seems like she was very cared for under her foster mother's care.
Yeah, she seemed to really love her. But then she also had a family that wanted to adopt her, but she was already given back to Adam because she had, I think, a twin brother, at least a brother, that was adopted by a news broadcaster guy. I don't remember his name, but and his husband. And they wanted to have Harmony as well so that they could keep them together. And, you know, they seem nice. It seems like the brother is doing well. So it's so sad that she had 2 opportunities that were fucked.
And they still gave them back to Adam, who was living in his car with his, doing drugs in the car.
And CPS went and checked their house too, and they're like, it's not great, but not terrible.
It's fine. I read a sad article about the brothers, got too many words here, the brother's foster father, who is now his adoptive father. They said that they went back and looked at their records and that basically they think the day they actually legally adopted Harmony's brother was the day she likely died. And it goes, I feel just horrible that, like, it's just a sliding doors moment, isn't it? That kid got lucky and was allowed to go to the foster home and Harmony was given back to Adam.
Sad story. Hopefully he gets the max punishment.
Surely he has to.
And Kayla can get fucked as well.
Mm.
All right. So the last one we're going to talk about is some stuff with Moscow. So prosecutors announced on June 26th that they intend to seek the death penalty. Another case I don't really think we need to go into background. I think we've all followed this one, but he is accused of murdering Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison in Moscow, Idaho, in their house in November last year. If you hadn't followed that case somehow, if you want to know more about it, we did 2 pretty big episodes on that case that you could go back and listen to.
We have tons of highlights on our Instagram. I think we're up to Moscow
Tons.
number 6. So if you really know nothing about the case, go and start at 1 and you'll catch up in about 3 days.
Yeah, it was a big, big case on social media and still is, honestly. According to CNN, in March this year, Idaho Governor Brad Little signed a new law giving the state's Department of Corrections up to 5 days after a death warrant is issued to determine if lethal injection drugs are available. And if the drugs are not available, a firing squad can perform the execution. That's
It seems
interesting. 'Cause some
so
people be on death row for years.
it seems so barbaric too that they could actually use a
A
firing
firing
squad.
squad,
Like, I feel like
right?
they do that in Indonesia and countries like that where they really are like, too bad you're gonna die for, importing drugs or whatever. Whereas I just feel like I can't believe it's still an option.
Yeah, it is crazy if you think about it.
Yeah.
The prosecution has not identified or been provided with any mitigating circumstances to stop it from considering the death penalty, according to a court document filed on Monday. And it said, consequently, considering all evidence currently known to the state is compelled to file this notice of intent to seek the death penalty. Prosecution will continue to review additional information as it is received and reserves the right to amend or withdraw the notice. So around that time, we learned about that. We also found some more info about the DNA evidence. So this info is from NBC. It says DNA on a knife sheath found at the off-campus home where 4 Idaho college students were killed last November directly links accused murderer Bryan Kohberger to the crime scene, according to court documents filed by prosecutors last week. Law enforcement officials used investigative genetic genealogy to link DNA found on the sheath to Kohberger 28. The investigation found that the DNA was at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be Kohberger's than an unrelated member of the public.
I feel like they said at the time when they did say there was DNA evidence, it wasn't directly related to Brian. It was related more to his dad. They used like some genealogical research, but
Well,
now they've.
so they went in Pennsylvania. They went through his trash after he brought it out, and they saw that Brian was also bringing the trash out with gloves, and they took some stuff from the trash. Seems like Brian was being very careful about like his stuff going in the trash because the DNA that they got off of something was his dad's DNA, and they were able to connect his dad's DNA to the DNA found at the scene, so they
And
could
that
tell they were related.
Yeah. But this update says that the stuff on the knife is 100% from Brian, or
Yeah, so now that they
5.37 octillion times.
so now they actually have Brian, they connected him actually to the DNA that was there. So Brian's legal team gave a bizarre explanation of this, which I don't even think it's like a correct response to what was said, but says the attorney characterizes investigative genetic genealogy as bizarrely complex DNA tree experiment and writes that there's no explanation for the total lack of DNA evidence from the victims in Brian's apartment, office, or home vehicle, which they never said there wasn't. Just, I guess he would know, though, what they have. Rather than seeing it as some sort of complex tree building that led to him, it appears far more like a lineup where the government was already aware of who they wanted to target. They also said that another man's DNA was found on a glove outside the house less than a week after the murders, and that the DNA of 2 additional men were found in the house by December 17th. He said the defense team is unaware of what, if any, testing was conducted on those samples. No shit, it was a fucking college party house. Of course there's other DNA there.
Yeah, I know. It's just such a reach.
And yes, genetic genealogy might be a little something that the defense could poke holes in as being reasonable doubt, but they've matched his DNA to it now. Like, I don't know if they're going to try to be like, oh, well, the way that they pinpointed him was sketchy, which it really wasn't, because they were already on to him at that point to be outside of his house looking at his trash.
And like the thing is too, there's so many other pieces of evidence, like him doing the, return in the driveway. Like they It's not like they just
And I bet there's
got
more
lucky.
that we don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I want to know what his search history, social media, all that was like.
Hopefully we'll find out.
Yeah.
So the other kind of main news in the Moscow case is that they are still planning to tear down the house. There were trucks seen there the other day. Everyone's like, wow. I think they were crime scene cleaning trucks. Everyone's like, what's going on? But apparently they were just retrieving the belongings of the 4 people to give back to their families. They had it set up so you couldn't see what they were taking in or out. They had kind of a tarp set up between the car and the door so they could take stuff out without anyone seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not familiar with the house, I believe it was owned by developers who kind of rented it out as an investment. But anyway, whoever it was, gave the house to the University of Idaho. In February 2023, the president of the university sent out an email saying that the house would be demolished. He said this is a healing step and removes the physical structure where the crime that shook our community was committed. Demolition also removes efforts to further sensationalize the crime scene. So they are apparently, I believe, planning to demolish this house before the trial. Attorney Shannon Gray, who represents Kaylee, Maddie and Zana's family, said the families want the house to remain standing until the criminal case is resolved. But the University of Idaho spokesperson said recently, we are currently working on removing all personal items from the house so the families can claim them. Then we will move forward with the demolition.
This is an interview with Shannon Gray, the attorney for the victims' families.
I mean, what's the deal in Moscow? Why has this become such a big deal?
I really can't explain it to you. It seems very commonsensical. What a privilege it is to the University of Idaho to be able to just demo the place and move on. That's not something the victims' families or even the community has the opportunity to do. But they've taken this stance where we want to know what you think, but then we don't really want to listen to what you think if it doesn't agree with our line of what we want to do with the house. So it's beyond me and it's beyond the families, the Gonzalez family in particular, about why they're demoing the house, why they're moving so fast. I think we've expressed, over and over again to them that it's important to just keep the house there just in case someone needs it. And then when the trial's over, do whatever you want with it. And the response has basically been, victims' families spend legal money to give us a legal argument on why we shouldn't have to be able to demo the house, which I find is just absolutely ridiculous.
One of the things that's been hard to track, Shannon, is the timeline on the demolition because they said it was going to happen imminently at one point, which was quite some time ago, and now they're still removing items from the house, but it is still standing. Are they giving the families or you any more specifics on a timeline?
No, not really. I mean, initially it was set to be demolished, and then the defense put a stop to it. And then they got a chance to go in and take a look at the house, things like that. And then the private items, the personal items were removed. A lot of the personal items were removed from the home. They were turned over to the families. And then they contacted us and said, hey, if there's any kind of furniture or large items that you might want that are still in the house. And I was contacted by the families and said, hey, Shannon, can you walk the house so we can see what we want and what we don't want? And basically the university said, no, Mr. Gray, you're not going to be allowed into the house at all. And we'll remove the items, and then we'll let you know when you can pick those things up or get those things. And so, and throughout that entire time, from the beginning, we've asked them not to demo the house. So it's been going on for months of asking them. And every time they come back and they give us a date, it gets moved back. So I'm hoping that they'll just stop it.
Well, we saw in Parkland, and granted, it's a different situation. More time has gone by in there, but I mean, to see that some of these families are going to go inside that building, it breaks your heart. But at the same time, you can understand, people want to see where their loved one, had their final moments. Is that a discussion that's come up at all with the Gonzalez's or any of the other families that you know in terms, would they eventually want to go inside?
Well, remember in Parkland, though, they know who did it.
Yeah.
They knew who the person was. I think he admitted to it. They arrested him on the scene. And the jury still wanted to go take a look at the property, right?
Yeah.
This is a case where we don't know anything about the case. We don't have any facts about it. We don't know what's involved in it. And so I think it's emotional for a lot of the families as well. It's the last place where their child was. And I think as part of the healing process as well, is you may not want to step in that house now, but maybe later you might want to take a look and just be where your child was the last time they were alive. And it seems very dramatic, but it's a very emotional. And you also, the families, there's a need to stay connected to the people that were there, Dylan and Bethany, as being their roommates. I think the families feel there's a certain amount of bond there because they were there, right? And you can't explain it as the victims' families. Only the victims can go through that are going through that. But, there's a lot of value to it. I think there's a lot of evidentiary value to it. And then there's also the personal aspect of it for the families. And I would implore that anybody who has any influence on the University of Idaho, who's a graduate or calls them and tells them to stop what they're doing and listen to the victims' families.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point you make, Shannon. And it does seem like it's just so soon that they just sort of want to erase, in a sense, of what happened there, almost from like a PR perspective.
So I asked on Instagram what everyone thought about tearing the house down. 94% of people said it shouldn't be torn down until after the trial, which I agree. I don't really know what the rush is. I feel like the rush is so when the trial does happen, there's not, people go into the house to look, but essentially it's all boarded up. You can't see in the house anymore. I just feel like to preserve any evidence would be wise, you would think.
I think also because until the trial, then they'd have to pay some security company to watch the house and all that.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think it's silly to knock it down. I mean, I understand why they'd want to. Like, it's kind of a bad
Eventually,
omen.
yeah.
But imagine how scary it would be for the families just not having that kind of security blanket of it being there. If in their minds, I'm sure they're like, what if they missed something? What if something is in the house that could help with the trial? It would be very hard for them to permanently let that go before this is resolved. But also, I wonder if it was cleaned up already, like the blood and everything. Because, with Parkland, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, they kept that school up the whole time until the trial. They left the blood, they left everything so that the jury could walk through it. And I mean, if it's cleaned up already, I guess I can see more of the reason why to tear it down. But if they haven't cleaned up the blood and everything yet, I think that it'd be way more impactful for the jury to literally go to the house and be there and see how brutally these kids were murdered versus just seeing crime scene photos.
I just feel like the only benefit essentially to tearing it down is a financial benefit for the university to not have to worry about it. I feel like just keeping it as a let's have it just in case is surely should be what is happening.
And just for the family's peace of mind, like.
So those families are kind of hoping that it won't be demolished before the trial. But Kaylee's mum did speak to ABC News and she said that she was glad no one else would live in the house. She said, it's going to be very multifaceted for me because my daughter lived in that home. She lived a happy life in that home and she loved living there. And for the real story, what happened in that house was so horrific that it has to be torn down. That doesn't happen that often. For them to say, no, we don't want any family in here. We don't want anyone living in here. It's got to be torn down. It's definitely not happy, which I agree.
I'm sure it's also tough, though, being like, that's the last place they were. And it has to be torn down. Like, that's sad. There's always been tons of conspiracy theories or just very involved theories on social media. There's so many people who I feel like comment on this case just for views and profit, which, again, I've said this before. I know it seems hypocritical coming from me as someone with a crime podcast who's literally talking about it. But there's some people who, not anyone specific, I'm just saying kind of in general, who want to put out these like big sensational theories about the roommates or other people who partied at the house just for views. And I think that's bullshit and a shitty thing to do. I mean, if you want to speculate to yourself and look and talk to your friends about it, that's one thing. But putting out all these wild TikToks or email chains about how, how it's like a big drug circle and all these people were involved in like huge drug dealing. I just think that's fucked up.
Even after the affidavit or the document that the police released that has so much technical information about his phone, about his car, like that's still not enough for some people.
There's a lot of Bryan Kohberger supporters
Fans.
who think that he's being framed. But it's like, why the fuck would they choose him to frame?
And like, why would the government be after Bryan Kohberger? Like,
or trying to cover up something for these kids. There's just so many dumb accusations where it's just like annoying to me, honestly. Because I feel like it gives people like us who kind of just talk about what actually happened and things that make the most sense and don't completely sensationalize the story. I feel like we just kind of get grouped in with all these people who come up with these insane theories. And I don't like that. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be seen in that light. I hope no one comes after me for this. Like, get your bag, but it's not for me.
So one of the questions or comments we had in regards to this case is someone said, has Bryan ever released a statement on his arrest, some sort of declaration? He hasn't. I remember, though, when he was first arrested, their quote was he was eager to be exonerated over their deaths. That came from the attorney, and that he wouldn't fight extradition. But aside from that, he has not, as far as I am aware, made any statements. He didn't even plead at the last court appearance. He just stood silent so the judge entered the not guilty plea for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he definitely hasn't ever made a statement or even through his attorney regarding the arrest, I don't think. So I believe Bryan is due back in court. October is when it's all meant to kick off. I still don't know if it will, hopefully, but time will see.
Yeah, we'll see. It seems very far away, but I'm sure it'll come quickly. I can't believe it's already July, honestly, so.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is it for our updates. Let us know what you guys think. Message us, follow us on Threads and all that. Love to hear what you guys think about these cases. Follow us on Instagram, True Crime Society, follow our personal accounts. Mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia. If you're listening on Spotify or any platform, make sure you're actually following us or subscribed or whatever the little button is on the platform of your choosing. It's a big help to us, especially as we mentioned during the summer when everyone's out living their best life. We don't get as many downloads. And we're not as pathetic as we're making it sound. It's not like no one's listening, but it just helps. So if you want to help us, please do that and leave us some nice reviews. And if we do put up a Patreon, please at least check it out and give it a look. Otherwise, this will always be the same, like we said. I think that's it. Share the podcast with your friends, share it on Instagram, and that's it. Stay safe. Thanks for listening. Peace out.
See ya.